everybody, it's Kira with Polymer Clay TV, and today I'm going to give you a little peek into my dressing area. It's kind of a mess, and I want to clean it up and make something pretty to organize my stuff. Step into my hallway, where I have a window that looks at my neighbor's window, so I frosted that over with some Martha Stewart glass paint. And there was this funky old mirror hanging on the wall when I moved in, so I hung a floating shelf underneath it. Found that fun chevron lamp in one of my favorite colors, and then I just wanted to share this with you. This is a wire flower from Hobby Lobby that I immediately thought, I'm going to hang my jewelry on that. So when you see things at the store that you like, but you're kind of like, what would I do with a wire flower? There's an idea. But let's take a look at this tabletop here because it's a mess and I want to organize it. And right now I've got hair ties and bobby pins, and the things that I use on my face all the time are kind of scattered about. So I'm going to make a little valet to organize this space so that I can turn it from this mess into this. Maybe you'll recognize this little ring bowl from an earlier episode, and now I have these coordinated pieces. So my makeup is being held in by this little tray and it's not going to roll all over the place. Look how pretty that is. Let's go get started. This project is going to be pretty easy and come together quick. So here's what I'm using. I am using the Flame Heart Flower and Zigzag border frill cutter set, and this one is the flower, so it's going to cut a really fun border. I'm using the floral round stamps set of 6 and the lotus mold. So this is a really nice little silicone mold, easy to pop it out. And then the clay I'll be using is Primo in Spanish Olive, Antique Gold, and Copper. And it's Primo and Primo Accents are the metallic colors. This copper color is one of my favorite all-time clay colors. It's beautiful. So the problem right now is that my clay is hard. So when you have hard clay, it's never need to the rescue. So here I have my Spanish moss and a little chunk of the antique gold, and they are hard and cold because it snowed only a couple days ago here where I live in Maryland. So I'm just going to make sure that there's no dust and stuff on my never need platforms, and I'm going to start smushing. Now this clay also, I had been warming it on my body. I just kind of stuck it inside my shirt for a minute to get it warm so that it would move a little easier because it really is cold. And when you use the Never Need to get your clay moving, the clay might crumble a little at first. And that's pretty normal. That's what clay does when it's not conditioned. But you can see it's starting to want to move. And you'll notice that my Never Need is on a silicone mat because I have a glass work table. So I put it there for 2 reasons. To kind of help it keep it from sliding, and also just for my own peace of mind so that I wouldn't feel like if the Never Need back end pops up, which sometimes it does if you don't hold it down, I didn't want it to come slamming back down on the glass tabletop because it's heavy. It weighs about, I think it weighs about 20 pounds. So it's a heavy tool that works really well. If I had tried to do this by hand, my hands would be hurting right now. Of course, my pasta machine is right next to my Never Need. And now that the clay is warmed up a bit, I can put it through here. Alright, so I've rolled my clay out rather thin to a number 4 on the pasta machine, and now I'm going to use these stamps to texture it. So they're just rubber stamps. I'm going to randomly use for texture because they're so pretty. Each one is different, but they're basically just round floral shapes. And once it's textured, I'm going to go ahead and use this as a straight edge and just cut out using my blade. Just a tray shape. Because basically I'm making a tray. Yeah. Oops. One side is straight and the other side has the floral design on it, so be careful. Okay, so now I have my basic shape and I'm going to make some edges and the lotus design. I've rolled the rest of the green clay out to a number 3, which is medium thick on the machine, and now we're going to go ahead and cut some borders. So you just place your clay on a tile or some kind of other surface that you can get it off of, because this is going to make it stick. And press your border down nice and firmly all the way into the clay. And then I'm going to cut this because I am actually making a border, and pull this up and then gently release this edge. Now you'll have to experiment with your pasta machine to see what is the appropriate thickness for you, because the clay will most likely stick. Trying to find a poker where I can get the flower out. Okay, so now I have one side of this edge created. And this edge is going to be to kind of hold in my little makeup things from rolling off. So I've got to decide if I want it to face in or out. I think I'm going to face it in. And just touch it down. Cut off my edges, and then I'm going to replace the flowers. So I do want those little flowers in the hole, so I'm going to scoop them off my tile and put them back. You can choose to leave them out or to decorate them, which is what I'm going to do next. With my ball stylus tool. I'm going to poke their middles, which will also serve to stick them down really nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and use that same stylus to create a border design, which also will hold the clay down onto the layer beneath. So I'm like using the tool to both make a design and to make sure that my piece has structural strength, because I don't want to get fingerprints all over it and smash it. So this is a great way to make sure that it's sticking to the bottom layer. So there it is again, cut out, trimmed, gently firmed against the edge here, and replacing the flowers that stayed in the cutter or got stuck to the tile. It happens. That's why we use tiles and a blade, because then you can just poke them back off, pick them back up with the blade. So I'm going to poke the centers of these flowers and then go ahead and make my border design. Time to mold the lotus, and I'm going to do it in two colors. So the central part, which would be the flower, is going to be copper. So I've conditioned my copper clay, and now I'm going to press it into the mold. Now, one of the things that I find with the metallic clays, especially when it's cold outside, is that they can be tough. They can be crumbly and tough. So I actually mixed a little bit of Sculpey clay softener into this clay as I was conditioning it. So I like to eyeball my molds and see how much clay I think I'm going to need, so that I'm under filling or just filling them enough. I don't like to have to cut off a whole bunch from the back of the mold. So with a mold like this, what you'll want to do is try to start with like a teardrop shape. This is how I do it. Some people just press it right in. I prefer to start with sort of a rounded teardrop, which is what I'm working on right now. That kind of a shape. And then I'm going to start by pressing it into the deepest part of the mold and then spreading it out. That way, I'm getting it down in to those deeper parts. All right, and now I am going to use a blade to scrape the clay off the back because I have too much clay. You want to be careful when you do that you don't damage the mold. So pressing it in, and then I'm just going to have to sort of backfill a little bit into the points. Molding a complex shape can be a process. All right, and then I've got my green, which I'm going to use for the flourishes on the edge. And for that, I'm going to just eyeball the shape. Press it in and then cut it off on the back. And this is a sort of gentle, slow, I want to say shaving kind of a process, where you're just shaving down to the shape of the mold. I'm going to flip this out and trim it up before I attach it to my main piece. Make sure I get that leaf below the flower. And then I'm picking up all those flourishes. So now when I flip this out, ooh, that's nice. I'll move this so you can see it. Okay, so I have a couple of little issues that I can go after with my X-Acto blade. And this is a chance for you also to customize this. If you wanted to change the shape of any of these things happening in here, you could do it now. Sometimes it's fun to sort of customize a mold because then it doesn't look like every other molded piece that you make. So putting your own touches, which I probably am going to do some work on this with the ball stylus in a second here. Just trimming out some of the places where I didn't get all of the clay off when I was pulling it out of the mold. It helps to turn something upside down, look at it from another angle. You often see things that you missed when you do that. Okay, so now I'm going to come after this with my ball stylus a little bit. Maybe create some of those same dot patterns around the edges and definitely deepen what's happening up here where the lotus pod is open. I really like how lotus pods look with all those little circles. So I want to accentuate that. Okay, and now we're going to go after this with some metallic powder. As you can see, I have a large selection of Pearl X and other kinds of metallic powders that I keep in a drawer. Alright, I like to keep my Pearl X upside down because then I can give them a little tap, open them up, and use what's in the lid. See that? So now I have a whole bunch of powder in the lid here, and I can use my finger and swipe. So I'm going to use this to highlight what's going on with these borders, just by putting my finger in the powder on the lid and swirling it onto the border design. So now that green is going to be down in the cracks, which will contrast with the gold on the border, and it's really nice looking. It's a really easy way to make something look fabulous, is to just swipe some powder onto it. You can use a brush if you want, but I like how it looks when I use my finger because it pulls it right off my finger onto everything I touch. I'm going to use Aztec Gold on the leaves to highlight them for the flower. And then the color that I have here is called Blue Russet, and I'm going to use that for the actual flower. And just highlight the tops of the petals, all the parts that stick up above the design. And then I'm going to go back into that center part here with the gold to highlight the pod area. Now the last step of working on this is going to be picking up the flower and placing it up at the bottom of the tray. So I'm going to carefully peel it up off the tile, and I'm going to place it right here. And just touch it down, make sure it's gonna stick. You don't have to be too rough with your polymer clay. As long as it's like firmly touching it, it's gonna stick when you bake it. Okay, which is the next step, so I'll be back when it's done.